Hello, welcome to Citizens Forum for 2018. This is our first show being filmed on Wednesday, January the 3rd. And welcome to our new, I think, greatly improved set. It's sure a lot brighter and more interesting than the old one. So, to start off 2018, an important subject, my guest is Liz Galanzowski, and Liz is with the BC Refed Party, a political party that we certainly don't hear very much about, but we're going to find out a little bit about. So Liz, welcome, and can you tell us something about what the party stands for and is about?
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to you and your crew. I'm glad for the opportunity. BC Refed started out in 2001. It actually was taken over from another party that was failing. And so the whole idea behind this party was to get some direct democracy going, because the elections at the end of the last century and the beginning of this didn't seem to change much. And the voters or citizens were definitely not happy with the way things were looking under the Liberals in this province.
Well, I'm a great believer in direct democracy, so what kind of issues direct democracy just means that people actually get to vote in referendums on important issues. This is done widely in the United States, but probably the home of direct democracy is Switzerland, which where there are votes on a lot of important issues, and I think Switzerland, it shows that it can work well. What kind of issues here would you think?
Well, before we get into the issues here, and there certainly are a few, particularly after this last election, I would just like to say that the direct democracy we promote is based on the Swiss system, where the citizens of the small units, the municipalities, cantons, and so on, decide how they are going to govern themselves. And they have all of the tools that they need. So government goes on doing whatever it thinks should be done, but if there is some disagreement, or if someone wants something done in Switzerland, then even one person can gather the signatures, create an initiative, and gather the necessary signatures over an adequate period of time, and that binds the government to proceed with a referendum. There is no question about whether or not the government will have a referendum. They are bound to have one. The results of that referendum are binding on the government. So, for example, if the people decide that, as has been the case recently, that violent criminals who harm children need to spend more than 7 years in prison, there is no question, even though the government in Switzerland argued against it, the fact that the people said no, this is just not adequate. The government was bound to write the proper legislation. And that's a very big difference from what we have here.
Yes, a very big difference.
So here we have all kinds of issues. Certainly under the Liberals, there was a long string of them across time. But since this new government has come in, a lot of voters had great expectations, for example, that the NDP would stop the Site C dam.
Well, since that's basically what they said, we did have those expectations.
And, we all know what happened.
Yes.
So I think it's the first time in British Columbia that people are now beginning to open their eyes and see, as we have been saying since 2001, by the way, that it doesn't matter what party you elect. The fact is that you have no influence for the other 3 years and 64 days.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Aside from the 1 minute you take to go into the polling booth and actually put one X in one box, that's about the last they ever want to hear from you. And it's true, that is not democracy when we have that kind of a situation.
Well, on that very point about direct democracy, I'd like to add another little slant to that, because it was about the early 70s. Up until that point in time, constituency or electoral districts were able to nominate, at least the members of the party were able to nominate the candidate that they wanted to represent them.
Yes, which is a very, very important point.
Right, but it's been gone since the early 70s. Now they can nominate someone, hold an election, a nomination meeting, but if the leader of the party doesn't agree, that person will never run for that party.
That's right.
So
That's right.
What's the point? And that's why people don't vote, is because they cannot see a point to why they're voting when they have no influence as to who is running, and they have no influence as to what that person is going to do after he or she is elected.
Can I make a suggestion for the ReFed Party?
By all means.
Why don't you change your name to something that is more reflective of the great ideas, I think, that you stand for? Because when I've ever seen the BC ReFed Party, I have no idea what it means. And yeah, so.
Well, the name of the party, really, if you check with Elections BC, is the BC Refederation Party.
Right.
And that name was chosen by a group that was running the party before I showed up here in 2010.
Right.
And the whole idea of it was that it was time to draw attention to the fact that provinces have autonomy, or at least have had autonomy that they should have and should now exercise. And having done that and implementing direct democracy, that whole idea would spread across the country. And we could therefore look forward to a true refederation, if you will, even though that's not really quite a word yet.
Yeah.
But that's how that name came about.
Well, anyways, it's not the most important point. But the point of direct democracy is extremely important. It really is something that's always swept to the side. You know, now we're talking a lot about proportional representation, which I think is a good thing. And we're going to actually have a vote on it, which is exactly direct democracy.
Well, maybe we will and maybe we won't.
Maybe we will and maybe we won't. And Site C, you know, Site C has been on the books for 10 years. You know, along the way somewhere we could have had a vote.
Actually, it's been on the books since about 1950.
Is that more than 10 years?
When there was when there was a plan for 3 dams to be built on the Peace. A couple of them never materialized. I mean, we do have 2 major dams, but from the initial plan, Site B never materialized, for example. The problem with Site C is, well, we don't have enough time to cover all of it, but let me be brief. Very few people have been given enough facts to make a reasonable decision on what they think about Site C. Where that dam is being built, it sits on, well, they call it bedrock, but it's not bedrock. And so it causes a lot of difficulty, and that's why there are continuing cracks on that north slope, because when water meets clay, it, kind of turns into a bit of a soup. And in 1947, I think it was, they actually built a bridge that was anchored where they're going to anchor Site C. And one morning at 6 a.m., that thing just slid off its anchors and ended up in the river.
Right. So imagine a reservoir.
So I knew about a bridge from many years back. I'd heard it on an announcement. So Leila Yule actually brought that business about how the North Slope continues to crack and deteriorate, and that's part of what's really driving up the price. But the thing is that once we made that connection between that bridge and where they're building Site C, we just put it out everywhere that we could. And it astounds me that the media knows about it, because there are experts who went and talked to BC Hydro and other people that are involved in building this and said it's
so the media has chosen not to tell the people of this province about that.
It has yet to be mentioned in televised media. I think
That's why we need direct democracy. I mean,
Exactly.
We need to be able to insert some sanity into this, the voice of the people. You wanted to mention the fact that the new funding proposals for the parties mean $0 for small parties,
Yes.
which is not necessarily a good thing. And again, something people should have a voice in.
Exactly.
And we've only got 2 minutes left. So.
Right, exactly. Well, let's just make it short. If the Green Party with 3 candidates, which was not party status, can negotiate for party status and end up with $800,000 in their hip pocket, there has to be a way in which all parties, once registered and have run the necessary candidates to maintain their party status, need to have the ability to access at least some of that funding.
That sounds fair, and again, that's something that people should have a voice in.
Well, the thing is the people who are in government and have been in government obviously aren't the smartest people to run the province.
Well, they're pretty smart at running it for the puppet masters.
That's fine, but
they're
when
not
you
running
look
it
at
for
it
us.
from the taxpayers or the citizens' point of view, it doesn't look very good.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely not. And there are a lot of people out here who have very good ideas but just cannot get any traction.
Yeah.
And that needs to change.
Okay, folks, the BC Refed Party, keep it in mind. And the ideas are, to me, very, very important. Thank you very much, Liz.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching the first segment of 2018 on Citizens Forum.
Welcome back to Citizens Forum. We have with us today Sharmarke Debeau. Sharmarke is a facilities volunteer for support services for refugees at the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. He is an award-winning community leader and a community connector. Sharmarke holds a BA in Business Technology from the University of Cape Breton. Welcome to Citizens Forum.
Thank you for having me.
I guess where we could start is, I know you are also an immigrant to Canada, and where was it that you were born and raised?
I was born in Somalia.
Okay.
It's the Horn of Africa in East Africa.
Right.
Yeah, I was there, and I left at the age of 8.
You left at the age just as a child.
Yes, yeah.
And what year was that?
That was 1992.
Now,
So
what-
now you can figure out how old I am.
well, and other things, because we sometimes, there's crisis and things that happen that
Correct.
you see more waves of people immigrating. Was that the case
Correct.
for you?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the early civil war in Somalia.
Yeah.
At that time, Somalia was not safe, and the whole government has collapsed. And because of the chaos and instability
Right.
and insecurity, and that's why we've decided to leave.
So you left with your family.
Yeah, with my sister.
Okay. And is that when you ended up on the east coast of Canada?
No, actually, my journey is long.
Okay.
I have been traveling from country to country for the last 20 years.
Okay.
And I came to Canada actually in 2012. So
Yes.
I've been here almost now 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But before that, I've lived 3 different countries.
Right. So, for you, when you got to Canada, I mean, you have so much experience traveling, I'm sure, but what did it mean to you to be able to get a Canadian citizenship?
I actually became Canadian 1st of July of last year.
Well,
On
congratulations.
Canada Day. So for me, it meant a lot. And actually, considering my background and where I'm coming from and my life experience, just being able to be adapted in Canada
Yeah.
and finally have a home, it was very important to me. And it was really exciting to join this big family.
Yeah.
And a big family of settlers and also our brothers and sisters of indigenous people. And it was very exciting and to have this privilege and responsibilities and rights to be Canadian.
Well, what I find is when people come into this country, and my family is an immigrant family from 1870, but we all came here for looking for safety and looking for ways to become, develop our skills and enjoy our lives, and I think what's important for when new people come is they bring new ideas and new perspectives and experience that they've had in their own countries, and that can really help in diversifying the discussion and broaden the parameters of looking at issues, and it really helps society become better because we have this broader experience that's coming to us, and we're very lucky to have that. So you ended up here in Victoria. Is there anything in particular you like about Victoria?
There's so many things
Yeah.
I love Victoria, and thank you for mentioning that we, as a newcomer, as a new citizen, joining generations of migrants
Yeah.
before us, and now just coming to this
Yeah.
country and having that. Most of us having that experience of immigrant. So coming Victoria for me was very, it was more like winning the golden ticket twice.
Yeah.
First you come to Canada, second then Victoria becomes home. And I love so many things such as the nature.
Yeah.
It's just Vancouver Island, when you go Vancouver on the ferry and you sit at the dock, and you just look at the Gulf Islands, you just amazed. You feel like piece of heaven. You know, how did I end up here? It's
Yeah, I have felt the
beautiful-
very
Yeah.
same way the first time I laid eyes on
yeah,
Vancouver
yeah,
Island.
yeah.
I'm just going, my gosh, I didn't know this was here. And we are so fortunate.
Absolutely. And other things is that very unique to Victoria, because I did travel a lot in the country for my work, and just saying thank you to the bus. I mean, that is
Yeah.
small gesture of young, old, all ages, all walks of
Yeah.
life, getting off that bus and saying to the driver, thank you. It's a Victoria thing, and some other places, but is something I take in pride
Yeah.
in that. I love the lifestyle in Victoria.
Yeah.
You know, you can walk around and, you know, it's safe.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, you know, and of course you can't. The weather generally is
Yes.
an asset. And I'm
Yes,
from
yeah.
New Brunswick, and
Okay.
I often get reports of them being under 6 feet of snow, and I feel a little bit guilty about that.
I actually went last year in Sackfield in New Brunswick,
Oh.
and they had a blizzard,
Yeah.
and Tim Hortons was closed. Then you know that it's that serious. Yes.
That's almost a catastrophe. you know.
Yes. So I can imagine, and it reminds me every time I travel outside of Victoria,
Yeah.
it reminds me how much I love Victoria. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to come back to Victoria. That's
Yeah.
how much I love it.
Well, for me, because I think we share the same view that you know, in many ways, Victoria is almost an ideal size city, and I think there's just a level of development here is quite high, and there's quite a bit of support. Now, what do you think are the challenges for new people when they come here? What are the major things that they struggle with if you're not right from this culture?
Yeah. I mean, Victoria, I mean, in any place, when you move from, even from province,
Yeah.
most of the people I meet, they're from Ontario. Not that I have anything against Ontario, but that's the beauty of people traveling and moving. And one of the hardest thing is finding friends and creating community, which takes a lot of time. Because in Victoria, we can be very friendly, but at the same time, very exclusive.
Yeah.
And for newcomers, they share that challenge
Yeah.
of making new friends and figuring out how things work. But on the top of that, if you are a refugee from another country,
Yeah.
and if you don't have the language, or immigrant as well, and it can create barriers.
Yeah.
And that is why where I work at the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria provides English courses, as you know, because people speak more language, so is additional language of the country they came into.
That's right.
And I like what you said earlier, when people come here and we bring our culture, we bring our beauty, experience. And science says that the more diversity, the more creativity begins.
Yes.
So it's actually good, because for the employers, even when they employ and different people and with the different backgrounds or walks of life or different perspective, it actually makes the environment better.
Really,
more
and I think the
creative.
Intercultural Association, you know, it in itself is a community.
Yes,
And it's and
very unique.
and it is because there's so many new faces and so many things happening all the time. But the
in the United Nations.
but the ambiance and the sort of vibe at the association is very, very good, very, very positive. And I think for people that are arriving here, this buoys them up and says, okay, I can make it here. I just, you know, there are things that I can do.
Absolutely. And when it comes to integration and settlement, I personally believe that every person is integration of an agent of integration.
Yeah.
That means anyone, the bus driver, the city worker, the politician, the doctor, the nurse, the teacher, the cleaner. Everyone is, how do we create such welcoming city and environment, regardless where you come from, regardless if you just located from other province or even from the mainland. So how do we welcome, but also that loneliness and connection is a struggle. Even some of our seniors, and as they get older and the children move out, they feel isolated. So I always think about how can we create in an environment where people are connected and feel that they have that connection. And
you know, when it comes to it's nice to know your neighbor. It's nice to speak the same language or be able to get on in the same language and all that. But there are deeper things in society. The values, the fundamental values that we all share, I think. Although we may consider ourselves different perspectives on politics or religion or something, when you get right down to it, we all share pretty well the same core values. And if we can have a chance to tap into those core values and share those with if we live here, we share them with newcomers or the other way, because I've always delighted in meeting new people. And I love the surprise of what they'll say something to me about an issue that's fresh and new. And I'm sometimes really
That's
shocked.
why employers should
Yeah.
hire people from different background, different perspective, different abilities as well, so that it creates more inclusive environment.
Yeah.
And it helps actually
Oh,
the
yes.
agency to be more productive in terms
Yeah,
of...
and also I think we, in these uncertain times globally, uncertainties everywhere, and with the state of democracies and under attack everywhere, including here in Canada, when we build a strong civil society, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
When we have a strong civil society, everybody benefits, and we just have to remember that as we go through our day. As you say, it's so wonderful when the bus driver says hello, or just these small things that happen that can really make our day.
Absolutely. And when we speak about diversity and inclusion, a professor put it very well. He said, diversity is a God-given, the way you look, the way you speak, but inclusion is more like, I invite you to the dance, but I also allow you to dance. So
No, it's
I
so
heard that
true.
was the best one I heard.
And
so I
it's
can't
always an
remember what I heard.
exercise.
Yeah.
It's always an exercise for everybody to sort of stretch a little bit outside of our comfort zones when we're meeting new people and all that.
I'm glad that you say that, because the more we feel uncomfortable, that's where the learning comes in.
That's right.
Even with our neighbors,
Yeah.
when we get a little bit uncomfortable,
Yeah.
then relationships start, because we get a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that builds connection as neighbors, as friends, co-workers, even city employees and everyone. that
Yeah,
lives in
and we
the
all
city,
benefit because
absolutely.
we just feel a little bit better about being in our lives. So look, it's so wonderful to have you here and talk to you, and but we have to wrap it up for today, and perhaps we'll have you on sometime in the future and we
It
can
was
see
a
how
pleasure
things
being
go.
here. Thank you very much.
So that concludes this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back, and this is the Walt and Jack segment of the show, and we like to bring in news clips and things that we would like to comment on. So what did you bring in for us today, Jack?
Well, Site C, why not start with that? What I think Site C does is it shows me, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that it doesn't matter who you vote for. There is a corporate agenda, and that agenda moves ahead. We can vote NDP, we can vote Liberal, we can vote whoever we want, but the corporate agenda moves ahead. So Mehdi sent me something that, it was a video of the 2016 Paddle for the Peace, where everybody got together and they paddled up the Peace River, in order to protect it. And
Yeah.
this is from 2016, last year. So Lana Popham was there, and this is what she, this is an edited version of what she said. Seeing the agricultural land, my stomach got ripped out of my body. It can't happen. Talking about Site C. It's the wrong project. We're putting forward alternatives. We're standing with you. We want it to stop. We have to stick together as progressives to stop this project. So that was Lana Popham in 2016. And there was nothing from the BCUC report or anywhere else, there was nothing in that anywhere that said this project should go ahead. The economic arguments and the job arguments, as we've seen on this show in the past, were for it to stop. But John Horgan said, no, we're going ahead. And Lana Popham and the rest of the cabinet, I don't want to pick on Lana, everybody's with him. Everybody's with him. There is something so wrong with our political system.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how we can get past it.
Well, you know, they got away with it so far.
So far.
I'm not giving up on this.
Me neither.
And especially the premise that the financing, if they stopped, it would be a huge burden, and we would have a huge hike in hydro
They're just
rates.
making that up. That stuff is made up.
That
There
is completely
no-
made up.
Yes.
And the thing is that factually, it's not a point of view. No, the government already had structured the debt, and it would have paid off over 70 years or something. That was never an issue. That was something that they invented to put some shock into the public and say, oh my gosh, higher hydro rates? We'll almost do anything not to have that. But it's based on a falsehood, and that's never going to go away. So, you know, the NDP are in trouble here more than just, it's not a nuance. As you say, the politics being what they are, the public, we're being ripped off. So I think there's something could really come out of this. Perhaps the push for proportional representation. This will be the proof that people need that we have to change the system.
Yeah, and we need even deeper changes than that. So, you know, there's going to be a Site C summit in Victoria on the weekend of, I can't remember the exact dates, but the Friday and Saturday of around January 25, 26.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, yeah, so if people want to look into that.
And where's that going
please
to be
do.
held at?
It's going to be held at the First United Church at the corner of Quadra and Balmoral.
Is there going to be a fee for participating?
There is. It's $40, or I think there's a $25 low-income thing.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, that's the way it has to be.
so they can afford to do it and bring in their speakers.
Bring in the speakers and rent space and do everything else. I mean, otherwise it's paid for by the.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate. You know, it's too bad we don't have money. The government has lots of money to do whatever they want, but the public groups trying to do what's right are always broke.
Yeah, and I think these things are so important because when these events happen and the real truth is generated up through the consensus of the people at the conference, and they really establish what is real and what is just invented, and it makes it harder for the politicians to invent things. And it does make it harder for the corporate media not to report the truth. Right now, we're at a stage where the corporations are winning. You know, we're fighting a losing battle right now. We're trying our best, but any events that like this happen that strengthen society, because I think that's where we got to come from. We have to find strength from within us as groups, in order to be a buffer, at least, to this agenda. Because right now, they're just getting away with pretty well anything.
Yeah, our side needs to reinvent itself with new strategies and
Yeah.
tactics that can allow us to win.
Yeah. Now, I was doing a little bit of reading about the fentanyl crisis, and I'll just bring this topic up, and I should have brought in, I had a fact sheet that I left home, but trying to understand the magnitude of the fentanyl crisis. And of course, what we're running into is problems in reporting, how the crisis is being framed and understood in society. The corporate media will often say the opiate crisis. Well, we've had opiates around a long time, and we've been always in a minor crisis with them. But
Or
this
not,
is brand new. This is like 1,600 people died in British Columbia last year.
It's a kind of an amazing.
Above anything else. Now that's a more than car accidents and more than almost any other cause of death.
And it's only British Columbia.
Well, no, it's all across North America.
I
and
mean,
the
when
United States.
1,600 in BC,
BC.
16,000 in Canada.
It's reflected in the United States. It's a crisis rate across the country. So you can just go times 10. So you're getting into 50, 60,000 deaths at least a year. It's new. Now, what always made me curious was they'd say, oh, say last year 800 people died or 1,000 people died, and this year 1,200 people died. And then they'd say, it's like a 20% increase over last year. But people are not getting the picture here that in 2012 and 2013, when it first started to arrive, I mean, we knew that fentanyl was around, the death rates were just altered very little, and then they skyrocketed. So if you go back to 2012 or 2013, this problem didn't exist. And we have to realize that this is not just an opiate problem. This is a new drug. It's not being regulated properly. It's coming into the country just in so many ways. There seems to be no way to stop it. And nobody has really come up with any type of a solution for this escalating carnage. The only other thing I want to mention about it was, because often we'll see the imagery of the downtown east side and people on the sidewalk and somebody's trying to resuscitate someone and they're talking about the fentanyl crisis. Well, in fact, in British Columbia, folks that are homeless or traditional drug users are only representing 12% of the total deaths in British Columbia. 88% of the deaths in British Columbia are people in their own homes, people that are participating in society and holding their own. So again, this is not a drug problem that we traditionally would see. We have this whole new thing happening, and it's killing people at a rate that's startling.
I think that this is a manufactured crisis coming out of the pharmaceutical industry. They put into the market what they said were painkillers that were not addictive, when of course they must have known they were addictive. And they were very, very addictive. So as soon as they came on the market, everybody started taking them. People with small problems who were taking painkillers, or big problems, because these were fairly powerful, became addicted to these drugs.
Yeah.
And here we are only a few years later with the disaster.
That is a good point, Jack, where the legal selling of drugs through your doctor, they were selling an opiate that was very addictive, and a very good chance that this is what's happened. People
in the States, they're suing. Several states are suing the drug manufacturers. Here in Canada, they won't even say that in the media or the politicians. Nobody will even say it because they don't want us to know what's really going on.
Yeah.
Blue Bridge?
Oh, let's talk about the Blue Bridge.
Okay, Focus magazine. I just saw it today. I don't know how long it's been out for. Really, everybody should have a look. The Blue Bridge it's a very technical piece of equipment. It has to work perfectly. They just have a picture. It's hard to see here, but pick up a copy of the magazine. There's a steel, it says, as a result of a flaw in its structural design, the signature feature of the new bridge, the rings, which are like the most important thing, required the addition of external bolted-on plates. So that's how well designed this bridge was. The Focus magazine is asking the question, does City Council know about this? Why doesn't the public know about this? They just the guy happened to notice it when he went down to take a look at the bridge. Anyways, they say in here on page 17, just to give people a perspective of what's been done to us, the first engineer to provide direction on what to do with the bridge told the city in 2008 that an adequate repair, including seismic upgrading, would cost $8.6 million. That was the original recommendation. And our city council and our media has created this disaster for our city.
And that's what we're stuck with. And I'm wondering if this Blue Bridge is ever going to work. I'm really wondering. I'm looking at the design, and if it does work, how long will it be before there's problems with it? And we'll just have an ongoing saga of expenses off into the future.
Plus, we lost the rail bridge.
So, what else do you have, Jack?
Well, God. Well, we haven't talked about proportional representation, although you did mention it.
Yeah.
Once again, it's going to be a very, very difficult fight. It's a fight that we have to do our best to win.
Yeah.
The fight is going to be fought at many levels. I think proportional representation is a step towards better democracy and a better country. I really, really hope we can get it.
You know, in the States, there was I think there was, the guy was Moore. He was running a Republican trying to get, senator trying to get reelected, and he was caught up in a whole lot of different scandals, and it was just really quite scandalous. And the people, the African American people in that area could see that some of the legislation that's going to happen if he had got elected was going to be so backwards. Now, they had a slogan which I thought was so clever. It said, vote or die. That was their slogan, vote or die. And I'm feeling like that with proportional representation. They've got us on the mat. We don't have much going for us. You know, we have to push this through. And we have to get over what all the corporate media is going to be spinning out, and other shows are going to be spinning out, and what the liberals are spinning out right now. I see. It's just, we have to just get past that and demand it. And just, if we don't demand it, the politicians are going to figure out a way to get around it. That's the way it's going to be.
Walter, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack. And we're getting the wrap-up sign. So that completes this segment of Citizens Forum.
Welcome back. I'd just like to start by thanking our volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes this program happen every couple of weeks. It's Wednesday, January the 3rd. This is the last segment, and our guest is William Goldeet. And we're going to be talking about citizens' assemblies. So I think what a citizens' assembly is something that's very important. It brings together a randomly selected group of people. It can be 20 or it can be 200. They have to be randomly selected, or as much as possible, so they don't represent, the usual suspects, but they represent the public because they are, randomly selected. And we give those people some training in doing it, and we should have this training throughout our lives. And we pose them the questions about the issues that people are interested in. And we find out, what do real people think should be done in all of these different things? We had a citizens' assembly put together by a group of volunteers here in Victoria maybe 10 years ago or more. And they just came out with a statement that unfortunately I don't have, but it was a beautiful statement. And I just thought, wow, look what a group of citizens can do when they come together to give us some leadership, which we so desperately need in these times.
I agree.
I hope you're going to say some more.
Yeah, I agree. Well, come on, we are Canadian, right? Yeah. So, is citizens a symbol? I think, as you said, is very important. I think we have an interview before about the African saying that I am who I am because of who we all are.
Yes.
So so having a citizen assembly is very important. In my view, Canada is a diverse country, and we need to have a conversation to get to know each other,
Very good idea.
Yeah. you know, we have, especially me as a visible minority, I got many questions all the time. Where you come from, where you come from, which is very good, beautiful. You know, I need to ask people also, where did they come from also? Because there is something we can share. There is a story behind that question. It started with question, where you come from. So if we have a citizen assembly where we can have a coffee, or where we can come and talk about important issues that, you know, like policies, how the government delivers the services, you know, I think it's very important, you know. Yeah. Yes. So in my thinking, yes, we have a parliament where we send MPs, but we should have our backyard parliament where the citizens come together and talk also. You know.
I think that's something in Canada that we really need, just kind of more ways of getting together. Like, I grew up in Winnipeg, and at that time there were evening classes in almost all the schools, or many schools, certainly schools in my neighborhood. And I mean, we've got the recreation centers, but this was so much broader. Classes about politics, about playing cards, about everything. It was a way for people to come together in their neighborhood and do stuff. Plus, they had badminton and everything else. I mean, I think we need that kind of stuff more. We also need citizens' assemblies, so as people come together, our voices get heard about whatever it is we want our voices to be heard about. And of course, it's going to take some money to do this, but I think if we can start pushing the voice of real Canadians, we're going to save so much money and start going in such better directions. The whole country will prosper, you know, as opposed to only a few prospering so greatly as we now have. And I really like that one sentence you said. I can't repeat it, but I am what
I am who I am because of what we all are.
Yes.
I am who I am because of what we all are.
And it's so true.
It is.
It's so true.
It is.
And our leadership is creating a society that is making us less instead of more, because when you have a society that deliberately creates wide divisions in income, when you have income inequality, you get all the problems that we see around us. And I think if we had citizens' assemblies, I don't think we'd be saying as citizens, yeah, let's make a few people very, very rich and the rest of us poor. That sounds like a good idea. I think we'd be saying very different things. And if those citizens' assemblies had some power in our political process, which they should have, then I think we'd be a much better city, province, and country for it. So how are we going to do it?
Well, it's simple to do it. And it's
I'm
not
glad
simple.
to hear that.
It's not simple. If two can sit together and talk, we have other people out there, right? We can look for them. Start with 10 people, as you said in the beginning. 10 people, 20 people. That's it, you know. Let me just use example from where I come. I love to do that. I used my life in Canada here 10 years now in Canada. So I'm over 50 years. So that means 40 years I spend them outside Canada. So I have many life experience before I come here. In where I come, people gather together every day. And within the people there is the leaders. So you can see the leaders give the ears to people to listen. And people talk about the important things, whether cultural, social, political, whatever, they talk. But the leaders will be the last person to talk. And any decision being taken will be taken from the people input, because they share their view already, and then the leader use those view and take a decision based on those view. The same thing here. I think the people at the grassroots, they are refuge for our leaders, starting from the mayor of the city or the council, connected to the people, to the citizen assembly, and then to the premier and up to the prime ministries.
Yes.
So if the mayor is connected with the people know already what are the important issues is for them.
Yes.
And then the mayor will take from there.
Yes. Now that sounds to me the way it should work, but in my opinion, that isn't the way it does work. The way it seems to work here in Canada, and it doesn't matter really what city you live in or what province you live in, or if you look at the federal government as a whole, the decisions are made at the top. What the public wants never seems to matter. And we've lost that democracy, which I think is what you were talking about. People, that's the way it's supposed to work. People talk, people say what they want, the leaders listen and try to do that. I think if we had that kind of a Canada, this would be a much, much, much better country. We've got to start being less top-down and more bottom-up. And citizens' assemblies can play a pivotal role in that because they are the voice of the people. You bring together randomly selected groups of people to focus on issues or do whatever. And you listen to them and you put them on TV so people can see what's going on. I really think it would be great. So we've just got to make it happen.
If you look at the pyramid, just up, down. So that is a grassroots, and the leaders are just narrow up there, So yes, even the public consultations. If there is a public consultations, the citizen assembly can play a great role, when they express their concern. And then it's easier for the mayor or for the government to collect those information and use them. It's very important. But any decision being taken by the MPs or prime ministers or premiers without public consultation, it's very individuals, it will not make sense to my view. It's just one person. And look, in other words, we have many lobbyists who lobbies the government. We don't see them. It's supposed to be the citizen duty to lobby the government. Because we're giving the message, we need the service. We need this service in this municipality or in these areas, But the lobbyists who are lobbying our government today, they are owner of corporation. Do they lobby the government because of the public interest? I don't think so. It's for their own interest, Yeah.
Yeah, we the people have been pushed so far to the outside. It would be nice if there was a group that promoting the ideas of, the first guest on the show today was from a party called BC Refed, and their number one issue, I think, is direct democracy. which is people vote on important issues. And the way, like it is in Switzerland, is the number one example. People vote on important issues, and the government has to do what the public wants. I think if that party also took on the idea of citizens' assemblies, you know, there we'd have a political party with some, I think, very, very positive ideas. And especially if we have a proportional voting system, a party like that could begin to get support and push the ideas.
And I think most of we Canadian, I think yes, we are okay. We feel okay, but really we are not okay. If you ask the people, what are their daily problems? Housing, health, whatever. You have people just right there in the street, you know. But everybody by his own problem. I don't know how much you are suffering. You don't know how much I am suffering. But we look okay. But I think through the gathering is where we can find out how are we feeling, how are we doing, you know.
Thank you, William, and Citizens Assemblies. And thank you for watching today's Citizens Forum.